What's up, family? What's up? What's up? What's up? So, big changes are happening in Indiana, and not just on the scoreboard, but one of the Fever's key players, Damiris Dantas, is set to miss several games this summer due to national team obligations with Brazil. This may seem like a minor scheduling issue on the surface, but from a basketball operations and business standpoint, this development has some serious implications for the team, the league, and even how international talent is managed in the WNBA. And I do like to break things down not only from a business perspective, but also financial perspective, while also integrating or connecting things from a basketball lens. Okay, so the departure that caught everyone off guard, I like to call it. This is Damiris Dantas. This is who we talking about here. Just to put a name to a face so everybody know what we talking about. As always, I like to show who we talking about. So, according to multiple sources, Dantas will be leaving the Fever in late June to compete in the FIBA Women's America Cup for Brazil. The tournament runs from June 28th to July 6th in Chile, but she's expected to depart several days prior, meaning she's likely to miss at least four WNBA games, which is the June 26th game versus the Sparks, June 27th versus the Dallas Wings, July 3rd versus the Aces, and July 5th again against the Sparks. And these aren't throwaway games either. This stretch could be pivotal for playoff positioning or player development. Now, here's where it gets complicated because Dantas is still under contract with the Indiana Fever, as we know, and most U.S. professional sports league, particularly the NBA or NFL, it will be virtually unheard of for a player to walk away mid-season to represent a national team unless it's an Olympic year and there's a league-wide break. But the WNBA operates differently, largely due to the global nature of women's basketball and the financial structure behind the league. As we know that the league is not self-reliant on its own to make money to be self-sufficient, as we know that it's propped up by NBA owners, NBA team owners or NBA franchise owners who funnel the money to keep this WNBA franchise together as a whole. So when the season is over, because the WNBA has a short season, they make money overseas so they can sustain their way of living while also still making money in the WNBA off season. Just to add the context there in regards of that when it comes to the whole financial structure of the WNBA league as we know it. So for decades, many WNBA players, especially international ones, have played year round, spending the WNBA offseason competing in overseas leagues where they often earn significantly more. What we're seeing now is the reverse. Overseas obligations pulling players out of the WNBA during the season. And that raises real questions because should the WNBA teams allow players to leave mid-season for other national or international tournaments? Does the league need a clearer policy, especially how now that global basketball events are becoming more frequent? And from a business standpoint, the situation is risky because if Dantas were to suffer a serious injury while representing Brazil, the Fever would be left holding the bag, paying salary for a player who can contribute with no immediate replacement ready to fill the gap. And it also puts added pressure on the roster, depth, rotation strategy, and team chemistry, as we know that these rosters on all the WNBA teams are 11 to 12 person teams on the roster, or 11 to 12 person teams filled with 11 to 12 people on the roster, um, 12 people max on the roster. So, and it also raised the question I want to ask you guys because it seems like the overseas teams have been so spoiled with having the WNBA players in the WNBA offseason that now they like, look, we give you significantly more, we pay you more anyway, and let alone we help you sustain your way of living far way greater than the WNBA. So when we call you, you better come because if that's the case, when you in the offseason and you begging us to come in the league, we're not gonna allow you in. So my question, family, is because this had to be done before. I always say if someone have done this before, well, if something happened before, they couldn't be the first time they done it. So I don't think these international teams, in my opinion, this is just my opinion because we're having a conversation. that this is the first time these overseas national teams have pulled WNBA players outside of out of the league, the WNBA league, when the WNBA is going on, because they know that they significantly give more money. And at the end of the day, when we call, you better show up, because the same way we show up when you need that money in the WNBA offseason, you better call when we need you to be here. So it also raises the question is, well, national teams, since they always already have been on an up and up, paying WNBA players significantly more in the US, is this a way of keeping the WNBA restraint, where at beck and call that we can control your players so your league won't grow as much as you're trying to get it to do now, because we already been the top of the top, paying y'all players more than y'all have ever paid with y'all struggling franchise in the WNBA? That's the question I have. That's what bears the question, because it seems like to me that's what they trying to say. The international team or the national team just trying to say without saying it, especially in this case when it comes to Dantas and the Brazil national team, that she got to leave the Indiana Fever in the WNBA midseason because she got to answer to their beck and call because she's still in contract. Because technically Dantas is in two contracts, but the Indiana Fever had to know about this contract, supposedly. So I hope so, right? So, it's like the national teams, it may be a way to have leverage and stay on the up and up versus the WNBA, right? That's what it seemed like to me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. But anyway, the upside of this, Dante's absence opens the doors for other players to prove themselves. Specifically players like um, Timmy Fagbinelli. I hope I got the name right. Um, or even young prospects trying to earn their way into the rotation, right? Coaches always talk about next woman up. And now there's chance to see who's ready to step in to more minutes. But continuity is key in basketball as we know it. And constant lineup changes disrupt rhythm most definitely, especially for a young Fever squad already trying to find its identity with Caitlin Clark sideline and Sophia Cunningham dealing with her injuries of her own. And then it comes the Aari McDonald contract question, right? Because we seen her play her first game. She played phenomenal. She didn't force anything. She was just learning and watching film and doing the best she can without forcing anything, but trying to be effective and using her instincts in the game on the floor within her first game she played with the Indiana Fever. And she did phenomenal, right? Especially on the defensive tip, controlling the floor, controlling the place, really disrupting the opponent's defenses. Um, I forgot who they played already. Her first game with Indiana Fever was against the Washington Mystics. There we go. I forgot. Had to recall that real quick. But Aari McDonald, right? Another key issue brewing in Indiana surrounds the guard, Aari McDonald. She performed well in limited action, prompted fans to ask, can the Fever keep her? Well, we all know it's not that simple. Due to the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement, hardship contracts are temporary by design, and they're only allowed when the teams fall below a certain number of healthy players. Once players return from injury and team no longer qualifies for hardship status, they're going to release the replacement player, even if she's a viable contributor. Sounds messed up, right? But McDonald is currently signed under such a hardship deal. Once the Fever get healthy and no longer meet the hardship threshold, McDonald must be released. But even more frustrating is there's a mandatory 10-day waiting period before she could even be re-signed under a standard contract, unless a spot opens via trade, injury, or release. In other words, Indiana might be forced to let a productive player walk simply due to bureaucratic timing, and this reveals a deeper flaw in the WNBA's roster rules. The league only allows 11 active players per team, which is the smallest roster limit of any major U.S. sport. And there's no real room for depth, no buffer, no injury waves, and certainly little flexibility for emerging players. and it creates a fragile system where roster management becomes a high stake balance becomes high stakes or becomes a high stakes balancing act every week. So, what does this mean for the WNBA growth? In my opinion, is this dual situation, an international departure, and Dantas and a hardship contract crunch with McDonald exposes the growing pains of a league trying to evolve. The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth in viewership, sponsorship, and talent depth, but its operational systems haven't caught up, and they need to. And the business of women's basketball is no longer confined to one league or one country. The WNBA must adapt to a world where its players are global assets with global obligations. And that may mean reconstructing how national team conflicts are handled. It might also mean expanding roster sizes, adjusting cap rules, or even introducing design slots for hardship or developmental players, right? It will make more sense. But at the end of the day, the fever situation is definitely a case study for what happens when rules built for a smaller league clash with a sport that's rapidly expanding. In this league, this franchise as a whole, the WNBA, needs to catch up with the times or it'll be left behind and it'll always be having this rat race of destruction because it's evolving too slowly. Because now that you got the growth, you're not managing effectively. That's only leads to a disaster. So it's time for the WNBA to think bigger because the players, the fans, and the product all demand it. But let me know in the comments, should the WNBA players be allowed to leave midseason for national team duties? And how would you fix the hardship contract issue? This isn't just about the Indiana Fever. It's about how future of women's basketball works. So without further ado, family, I hope you guys got some value from this video and enjoyed the conversation. I wanted to show you guys the credible source of where I got this from. This is Chloe Peterson. She had mentioned that the Fever expect Damiris Dantas to miss 4 games in late June, early July, and she'll go to Chile to play in Mary Cup W with the Brazilian national team. The tournament runs from June 28th to July 6th, but she will leave a few days before the tournament starts. So with no further ado, family, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And on that note, let the love supersede the hate. Spread that peace, love, and positivity. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.